Today we will discuss the motor theory of speech perception. The motor theory of speech perception is the hypothesis that people perceive spoken words by the vocal tract gestures through which these words are pronounced, rather than looking at the specific sound patterns which the speech generate. In this area, Lieberman and his colleagues Cooper and Gutzman in 1954 and 1957, they used sound spectrograph to explore how acoustic signals specify phonetic segments of syllables, words, and sentences. By doing that, they discovered that phonetic segments are co-articulated. That is, the vocal tract gestures for successive consonants and vowel overlap temporarily. According to this theory, perceptions and production are closely linked. Also, the understanding of the theory tells us that humans have a very special processing system and they are born with this speech processing system. Not only that, but they also look at the understanding of acoustic signals that play an important role in the understanding of speech perception. A theory of speech perception based on the notion that perception proceeds by reference to production is something that have been advocated by Lieberman and his colleagues. Now, according to them, this point that it is proceeds by reference to production is highlighted in the area that listeners use implicit articulatory knowledge. That knowledge is about how sounds are produced as an aid in perception. Now, looking at it, the main rationale for the motor theory is that it deals effectively with the lack of invariance. Now, Lieberman and his colleagues argue that although the relationship between acoustic structure and perception is quite complex, the sounds that are produced in similar ways, but with varying acoustic representations, are perceived in similar ways. The anecdotal evidence has been suggested by Catford et al. In 1991, and they also suggest that teaching students to produce sounds silently aids them in the identification of new sounds. Theory, which is the motor theory of speech perception, makes some testable claims about the brain mechanism which basically underlies the language. Now, this leads to the point where you see that the areas responsible for language perception and production are distinct and separate, and the motor theory would expect a closer neurological link between these functions. Now, in this part, we see that the phonetic modules which links these perceptual and productive skills may be an important innate mechanism in the acquisition of language. Then the motor theory has been considered to be very useful, especially with its implication in this area. We also have another study conducted by Ochman, which provides some support for the idea that perception and production areas of brain are closely related and thus indirectly for the motor theory. Now, the theory has some interesting implications regarding language acquisition, that infants can hear certain phonetic distinctions well before they are able to produce them. Now, these are some of the areas that come under motor theory of speech perception, and this also enables us to understand that we have a very special system of processing speech. Now, this can be considered special with regard to audition, in that its objects are not the proximal acoustic pattern, but the distal gestures that generated the acoustic patterns. Hence, the motor theory of speech perception claims that we perceive speech sounds by identifying the intended phonetic gestures through vocal tract that may produce the sounds. And in addition, the theory has implication for neurolinguistics and language acquisition in children.